Hi everyone. I thought I'd do a follow-up to the team session because I didn't get everything across to you like I wanted to. So I've made 3 cubes on just a standard file, and I have just get rid of that. And I've set up a couple of lights as well. So I'm going to show you this first one, and this one is called an area light. So I've just clicked and I've just made a new one. And this is almost like a torch beam. So what happens is the light gets emitted from that sort of spike that's coming out of it. You can change the size of it, you can change the intensity of it. In fact, let's do that now. So intensity is here, and this is a sort of built-in Maya type of light. If you look at Arnold render view, can you see the intensity building up? So it's not massively intense, but again we can ramp up these numbers. So let's do it to 1000. See that? Absolutely blown out. So like I said, this is like it sounds like a floodlight or something like that. And that is spreading shadows, I don't know if you can see, but in a sort of round shape around it. So this is good for sort of very like interior lights, spotlights, that type of thing. I'll get rid of that. Second light is this one. If we can try and click on it, yep. This one is under not Arnold. It's under, yeah, the first one's under Arnold. This one is under rendering. So sorry, this one is a sort of Maya preset. This is directional light, so all the light rays are parallel, so it's just like sunlight light. If we tilt it down, you can see what a dramatic effect it has. So it doesn't really matter where this thing's placed, it's whatever it's pointing at, it's going to illuminate evenly. So if I start tilting this up, if you just look at these 3 boxes and look at the top of it, see that? If it's not touching it, it's not going to light it, so it becomes quite bizarre. It's very sort of sharp light. And again, you can mess around with the intensity here. But I'm going to leave that as so. So you've got 2 main types of light. You can scale these up and down, obviously. Place them wherever you want. If you wanted to do a light coming from this, like say your building's got like literally got lights in it, you can actually use these to place more or less on an object. I'm not doing this brilliantly, I'm just doing it very quickly to show you. But you know, if you wanted to show light coming from there. Okay, I'll get rid of that. Now the last thing was the sky dome light, which didn't work. So we're going to go into Arnold. This is sky dome. Click on it and it will create this dome around it, and can you see it's lit up the entire scene. By the way, the settings I was looking for before are actually up here, so I couldn't get these bits out of the way. If you go to the 4th one along, it should have a cog on it. You click on that and you've got all these settings there for Arnold renderer. So I'm keeping the camera more than the rest of them, but I'm keeping everything else at about 2. And if you remember on common, this is where we can save our files and, you know, change them to be TIFFs or JPEGs or however we want it. So we want to put an HDR image on this so it interacts with the image. And the way you actually do that is under Attribute Editor. So I think before I was stuck on this, the channel box, and the Attribute Editor had gone bye-bye. So we make sure that the sky dome is selected. So this node connects to the sky dome and it tells it whereabouts it is, if it's rotated, all that type of stuff. So you could mess around with the size of the sky dome. This second one is the actual attributes of the sky dome. So under color, we click on here and we bring up this render node thing and we choose file, obviously. Right, it goes dark on here, but that's fine. And this is very much like placing the textures. If you remember, we had this, you know, for tiling and stuff like that. But all I want to do, make sure you're on file, click on the folder, navigate to where your file is, and I think I went on something called HDRI Heaven. I'm pretty sure that's what it was called, and they had hundreds of there for free, and they usually cost money, so it's a really good little resource. If it is something different, I'll put it in Teams. So I'm going to open that, and with a bit of luck, make sure that your settings, that you're displaying textures, because if you don't, it's probably not going to come up properly. And now we can pan around it and we've got this cool background. And this background will then influence all the colours in the scene, all the ambient light and stuff like that. Now, I remember one of you asking, before we get to that, so if you just want sort of even lighting in a scene, I think this is probably a really good way of doing it. And you can keep this open as long as your computer's fast enough. Now I'm using a Mac, and it's not the best Mac. The graphics card is a load of rubbish, but it seems to handle this alright. Anyway, I'm just going to get rid of this cube. If I pan back a bit, I've got this little thing that I've made. If we drop this in, if we can see on the renderer that it's actually like copper. Why can't I move? There we go. My mouse button's been a bit rubbish. You see that? It's pretty cool copper colour. So I'll show you how to do chromes and coppers and stuff like that. So we go, in fact, that one's already been done. Let's choose this one and do something similar. So I looked online at Arnold. So if you just go Arnold renderer and then just put copper, it'll bring up these lists on how you make them. The basic thing is, so we're going to apply a new texture. So right click it, assign new material. We're going to go to Arnold and we're going to choose, as usual, standard surface, and we're going to change the colour of it. So I want this to be, well, let's do a weird sort of green metal something. So I'll change the colour here, bring the saturation right up, a bit brighter than that, like a lime green colour. Now I'm going to click away from that, and these are the important things. If you want it to be 100% reflective, like a sheet of chrome or something, you put the metalness up to 1. Like so. Now it comes up as black here, but if you look in the renderer here, especially when I move around, this is completely reflective. It should reflect everything around it. And with specular, at the moment it's got roughness on, so it's basically the specular is the sort of the surface quality. So it means this surface is ever slightly rough. So if I turn down the roughness to 0, it makes it completely smooth surface. So turn that down. Let me have a look. There we go. See, I'm trying to get a side-on view which shows how reflective it is. That's reflecting the sky, and that is actually reflecting this ground bit. And if I go around this way, if I go around this side, it should be reflecting that ball in it. See that? That's pretty trippy, isn't it? So that is a mirrored surface, but it's also tinted ever so slightly green. If you want to do chrome, I'm going to click on this one. Let's move this up a bit. So if I want to do chrome, again I'll go and assign a new material. Choose Arnold. Choose standard surface. The colour we can keep as white. Let's put the weight up to 1 so it's really solid. Roughness, we don't want any roughness. Metal, we want up to 100 or 1, sorry. And if you remember the specular, the roughness at the moment, if I bring the roughness up, if you look at the renderer here, it should get it more and more matte, like a piece of plaster or something. Let's put it up to full. So that's a completely matte surface. If we pan around it, it's absorbing all the light. So we want it to reflect all the light, so we put it right down to 0. So this should look like chrome. So again, we don't have very many objects in the scene, so there's not a lot of stuff that'll make it look like chrome. But if I pan around again, and again let's get this ball, you see that? Perfect. In fact, let's move these objects a bit closer together so they interact a lot more. So let's put this, we'll actually have this sort of slamming into that one. Yeah, and we'll keep that ball there, and let's look this way. You see that? That's quite weird, isn't it? Let's move this out of the way a little bit. So this is reflecting this part here is reflecting whatever's above it, which is probably the sky, and this side will be reflecting the wall coming off that way. This copper ball, let's just have a look at the texture on that, which I've called chrome. And what I've done, I've put a base colour of a sort of a dull brown colour, but what I have done is the specular, which is how it deals with highlights. I've changed it to be yellow. So let's click on this again and change the specular colour to be red and see what happens. And it's a subtle change, but I'll zoom right in on it. And what it actually does is it warms up the reflections and things like that. Let's see if we can change it to green. Can you see it's just an ever so slight tint? But it's quite nice because if you're trying to do something like gold, gold would have a specular colour of green because it gives off a little bit of green colour. So that's it really. If you want a very matte colour, you turn the roughness up. Like, look at that now. And if you want a very glossy, you turn the roughness down and the metallic up to full. Now I'm just going to zoom in on this. Let's show you one last thing before I go. Let's go into our render settings. I think I've got settings in here somewhere. Can you see it's 34? This is how quickly it's rendering. If I click on here, it's like a shortcut to the render settings. No, it's not. Sorry. Use the ones up here. Now, if I go into Arnold Renderer, if I put this up to 5, and I'll put these all up to 4. Apparently you're supposed to leave volume indirect alone for some reason. And I'll zoom right in. And now this is going to shoot out a load more lights to take a load more of the detail in. So if we can see here, we're only 20% of the way through the render. I'm going to call it a render then. So that's how you get a higher quality render, but it obviously takes a lot longer to do, and it depends how many subjects you've got in your scene. But you can see how much better this render is looking already. So if you were to crank these all up to full, hopefully it wouldn't crash your computer. But I've left renders going for about an hour and a half before. And that's it really. So we've got the 3 different types of light. We've got the sky dome. We've got the what's this one called? I keep forgetting the name. We have, what's it called? It's not giving me a tooltip. Area light, which is the one which is a square with a line on it, which is good for doing sort of spotlight effects. And on rendering we have this one, which is a directional light. So go ahead and try all these different lights out, because I've not tried them all. The sky dome, remember we click on it, we go into the attribute editor, we click on the colour and bring up the file, and then when the file comes in, so just click on that again, you find your file here. Now you want to set a project and put that in your source images folder as well, and yeah, and changing different materials. So hopefully that was a little bit more helpful than this afternoon. Look at that, in under 14 minutes. Ah well, goodbye.